Diving safety officers are people who train divers and oversee their dive activities for universities and other scientific organizations. Diana Steller is the diving safety officer as well as a researcher at Moss Landing Marine Laboratory in California.
My name is Diana Steller. I am the diving safety officer at Moss Landing Marine Laboratories and on the research faculty, and I have been diving for 26 years. As a diving safety officer, I oversee the diving at our marine laboratory, and that includes training divers, doing checkout dives for incoming divers, overseeing a lot of paperwork, making sure that people have safe dive plans that make sense for the areas in which they're diving, whether it's the Antarctic or Central California coast or the Elkhorn Slough. A lot of different diving areas are used here at the Marine Lab. Then we have a lot of diving equipment that we need to maintain and make sure that it is safe and in working conditions, and that's a compressor, dive cylinders, and diving equipment, BCs, regulators, and in general the safety equipment that we use for diving. Science diving is conducting underwater research in biology, geology, archaeology, oceanography, and other underwater disciplines. At Moss Landing Marine Laboratories, we have about 65 to 70 active science divers on an annual basis, and that number is increasing with increasing coastal research. And in the U.S., there's probably 4,000 to 5,000 science divers, and they dive for various institutions around the country. The institutions that employ diving safety officers include large and small universities that have diving programs, different institutions like the Monterey Bay Aquarium or the Cal Academy of Sciences or the Smithsonian Institute that does research and research diving. Then different state or governmental agencies such as the National Park Service or Department of Fish and Game that does research. And then small consulting firms also have diving officers now and employ people as dive officers. I was first exposed to scuba diving as a child when both my parents, who grew up in Ohio, came to California, saw the coastal kelp beds of California, and learned to scuba dive. Then we were all exposed to skin diving and going to the beach, and so becoming comfortable in the water was part of my childhood. But then when I went to college, I actually I found a work study position that was advertised, but you needed to be a science diver to get it. And so I came home after my freshman year in college, got certified as a basic diver, and then took the research diving program at Santa Barbara, and then ended up getting a job for the next 2 years. What I like best about diving is the solitude, the exploration, and the ability to be weightless and explore underwater. I still enjoy that after all these years. And what I also enjoy is teaching other people and to acquire those capabilities where they can be explorers underwater, safe, competent divers, and then confident divers and science divers. At Moss Landing Marine Labs, I oversee a number of different types of diving plans, and that includes people diving in alpine lakes where we pack scuba tanks and weights onto the back of horses and hike into the mountains to sample alpine lakes, or training people with dry suits so that they can drill holes in the ice in the Antarctic and descend under in a underwater and overhead environment so that they're diving through the ice. People are diving in seagrass meadows in the Elkhorn Slough or the San Francisco Bay. They are diving in lots of different kelp beds up and down the California coast. And we even have people diving all over the Pacific in different tropical coral reef settings. So there are remote locations and places that are more close to home. In science diving, we use the same dive equipment that recreational divers use, but we add in some specialized tools that allow us to count things easily underwater. And one of those tools that many people use in science diving is a transect tape. And this is an underwater tape that can be attached to the bottom, whether it's on a coral reef or on a sand flat or in a kelp bed or on a wreck, so that you anchor one end of the transect tape down, you roll it out, anchor the other end down, and then you can take data along the transect tape in a fixed area. The other thing that we often use is an underwater slate, and it's a plastic slate with a clip and a pencil and a gradation, so that it's like a measuring device. But importantly, it has a room for a data sheet on underwater paper, and you can make the data sheet up ahead of time to answer the questions that you are interested in. And then it's easy to take data underwater because sometimes it's hard to write. And then you can quickly write down the types of data and count things along that transect tape. The diving conditions in Central California are highly variable, and they can vary from green water where you cannot see your hand in front of your face and you're surging back and forth with the big winter waves, to pristine, calm, clear days where you can see the kelp forest, the top of the kelp forest or the surface from 80 feet. So we really get a wide variety of conditions. But people come from all over the world to dive here because of these kelp beds where the plants are anchored to the bottom and reach all the way to the surface, and there are lots of fish and creatures that live in the kelp forest that are there every time you go diving, and you just have to look for them. One of the most important skills I have to use is assessing whether people are competent divers and whether and when they are ready to be independent divers and can go off on their own and start becoming their own dive leader and in charge of their own diving skills. So really helping people judging people's abilities and helping them judge their own abilities to be safe and productive divers. That's a really important skill. I also have to have computer skills that I use on a daily basis for communication and keeping records up to date and such. Boating skills, because we take people out in the open ocean on boats and judging weather and oceanographic conditions so that we can keep up to date, keep people's planning up to date, and help them gauge whether it's safe to go diving. And training, so education skills in the classroom, in the textbooks, and then also in the water, whether it's in the pool or in the open ocean. A typical day as a diving safety officer can vary from getting up very early and going out with my diving class and meeting them, packing up gear, and getting them organized so that we can go down, usually to Monterey, and conduct training dives. It can also be going out and doing my own research, and so that can include a variety of research either around here or in another location along coastal California. It could also be sitting at my desk organizing other people's diving, and that does happen to keep people organized. And then there's a lot of communication with the people at our marine facility, whether it's boating, because a lot of our diving involves boating. And so we coordinate with our small boats and our marine operations facility if we are diving off the different vessels. So there are a variety of things that I do every day, and no day is the same. Diving takes you into a different realm, which is underwater, and that has dangers associated with it, and those are real, and we train people so that they can meet most of those different types of emergencies that could arise and try to keep those from happening. However, issues can happen, and so every day that people are diving, there is always the question in my mind, could something come up? Are they well trained? Do they have the right people with them that could deal with an issue? So I think that's one of the most challenging parts of my job, knowing that there's the potential for that, but also feeling that they are well trained enough to deal with most situations. No, there's really nothing I'd rather be doing than this job. This job really encompasses a lot of the things that I really enjoy about doing marine science research, marine science diving training, because I get to do a little bit of a lot of those things, and I get to be exposed to people and interact with people that are really interested in what they're doing, and are really excited about the opportunities that science has for them. The advice I would give someone if they want to become a diving safety officer and also a researcher in underwater sciences is getting a graduate degree in either marine science or aquatic science, then becoming a scientific diver yourself and getting experience in a variety of different diving opportunities or diving techniques, and then becoming a diving instructor through one of the different agencies so that you are familiar with dive training practices. And those 3 areas would prepare you for a job like this.